Can you read my writing? Protocol and etiquette. So what does this include? When we think of protocol or we think of etiquette, what's etiquette? So if I say to you, your etiquette is great, you have really good etiquette, what does that mean?
Well behaved according to societal expectations.
Okay. Well behaved, so manners. Yes, manners. The way in which you teach. You can take a picture of the board afterwards. Manners. Way. Any more? I want you to finish the sentence. Holding.
Space.
Yes, for whom?
The students and yourself.
Yes. Should play hangman. Everybody played hangman. What else? Personal preparation. How many of you here are doing your sadhana every morning? Every morning, without fail, at the time that you agreed to do? Okay. Before you can teach, you need to know your personal style. And your personal style comes through your sadhana, your own practice, first and foremost. You need to have strength in the self. You need to have strength in your own personal practice. And that is your sadhana. Because that's your grounding. That's where you are in the morning before the day starts. So we all make excuses not to do sadhana practice, and reasons why we shouldn't do sadhana practice. Because we all want that bed. We're all tired from really harsh and hard Ashtanga classes, and muscles are hurting, joints are hurting, we feel fatigued, we feel worn out, and boy, that bed feels nice and cozy on that time of the morning. We're a long time dead. You've got plenty of time to sleep. You'll sleep for thousands of years maybe. That pain of Ashtanga class or that pain of another class is only a temporary pain. It only lasts for so long. And it's a feeling. So if you had a class tomorrow and you'd done a really intense practice the day before, would you not go to your class to teach? You would go to your class to teach. Okay. But why will you not do your sadhana for yourself? So you will do for others before you will do for yourself. That is your gratification. Your sadhana is your gratification for that day. For you. For yourself. For your grounding. For your teachings. Because in practice, we need to be continuously connected to the Guru light and the Guru lineage. How do we keep that connection? Do we keep that connection by going out there and teaching a class? Do we keep that connection by eating food? At what point are you into the self? Into you, where you are, who you are, what your feeling is, what your thought is, what is coming into the heart? Is at that time of practice, is at that time of sadhana. That is your connection. So when you have that maybe, little bit of lack of confidence of teaching, your sadhana will be your strength. And your sadhana is your connection to the Guru light, the teachings and the lineage. Otherwise, we become the same as every other amazing Instagram-worthy Ashtanga teacher out there in the world. It was really interesting to see how many people here just was like, for this photo shoot that's happening, They were like, everybody was on it. Yes, I want to have the photo shoot. Yes, I want to have a photo shoot. It's awesome. But Instagram photos of somebody putting their leg over the back of their head isn't really yoga. And is it really going to give you anything or your students anything? Because out of 100 students, maybe half a student potentially can do that in the normal world. Unless you're a dancer or you've had flexibility from a really young age, we find it takes us 30 years, 40 years, 50 years to become this stiff. So give yourself time, give yourself patience. You don't need to be amazing or perfect. You just need to be you when you're teaching a class. And you need to have manners. And you need to think about the way in which you teach. You might like a specific teaching style. And you can do similar, but you can't be that. You can't copy that. You have to bring your own energy and your own personality into it. Holding students and holding space for students is really important. Don't write it down. I'll send you all of this actually. Personal prep. How many of us are going to walk into a class and say, I'm teaching Ashtanga Series A today, all the way through that class because I know exactly what I'm teaching. Or I'm going to teach this vinyasa flow because this is how I'm feeling today. I'm feeling really strong today. I'm feeling really energetic today. And I'm going to teach this class because this is what I've planned for. This is what I know and this is what I've practiced. A little secret. You've got a plan. You've got to have a rough idea of what you're going to say. But you do not know the energy of your students in that room on that particular day. You have to have a plan B. And what does a plan B look like? Could be anything. Your plan A is this is structured. This is how I'm going to do it. This is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to incorporate. So you go in with that mindset of, you know, it's, let's talk middle of the week. It's Wednesday evening. Everybody's sick of Monday, Tuesday. It's like, oh, I've still got 2 days to go before the weekend. 2 days before I can finish work. I'm really tired. Didn't really want to be here, but I came because I need to feel good about myself. And you walk in as a teacher, all guns blazing, with your plan A of this really intense killing off vinyasa class. And your students just look at you. So when we go back to saying that we feel, you know, somebody might say to us, I don't like your class, or I don't like your teaching style. 9 times out of 10, there's 2 reasons why that will come. A, the other person's ego, or B, you've just not managed the expectation of that class quite to the level that it should be. So when I say have a plan B, it means just feel the energy of the room. See what your students are like. How engaging are they when they're walking in? What does their energy look like? And you know, you can actually even ask them the question. You can say, where is everybody feeling? Or how is everybody feeling today? And you'll get some that'll go like that, some that'll go like that, and some that'll go like that. And then your plan B's out of the window as well. No, I'm only joking. You know, have confidence in your ability. You're being taught. You're being given practicals, you're being given theories, and in your mind, all you're thinking is, wow, how do I put all of that together? Know yourself. You know yourself and what you're capable of. Because if you can do it here in class, you can do it out there. The only thing that stops you is you. And if you think about it, most people that come to the class don't have a clue anyway. You will know more than that person in the class. Just because somebody goes to an Ashtanga class and to the same studio for 5 years and they've done every single class there, doesn't mean that they're going to know more than you. They might know the sequence because they've done it for 5 years. But they don't know what comes behind that sequence. But you do. So, when we look at protocol and etiquette, have a plan B. What comes next?
How do you present yourself?
Just before that. Who's here on Ashtanga? Vinyasa? Put your other hand up. Kundalini? Hatha? Vinyasa and Hatha? Yin? Okay. Know your style. If you are learning Ashtanga and you love Ashtanga, teach Ashtanga. If somebody's student comes to you and says, oh, I want you to teach me a little bit of Yin, and you think, oh, do you know what? I can do that. Don't try go teach them Yin if you've not had the experience or the teaching of Yin. Know your style. Your style is your confidence. Then we have only teach what you know. Please don't make stuff up. We feel as humans, when there's silence, that we've got to keep speaking because there's an uncomfort or a discomfort, and that shows lack of confidence. So teach what you know. I'll go to abbreviations now because I know I'll send this to you. Be an expert. When I say be an expert, that doesn't mean that you have to keep learning for the next 10 years. You will learn every single day, because not only will you be a teacher, but you'll also be a student. Every day you're a student. Every day as a teacher, as a student, you're interchanging learnings continuously. I might come into a class and think, wow, you've done that so well, I really like that. You might come into your class and think, that was really good, I could use that. You know, we're constantly learning, we're constantly evolving. Be an expert in your subject matter. Go to different teachers. See what styles you like, what styles sit with you, what resonates with you, and why that resonates with you. And finally, practice, 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 practice. Dedication, practice. Dedication and practice. That is all it takes. Because with traditional teachings, you can't change them. They can't become something else. In 5 years' time, what you've been taught today isn't going to be something different. It's the same. The Ashtanga Series A isn't going to change. The Hatha postures are not going to change. Where they've come from, the scriptures are not going to change. It's not a religion. It's spirituality. It's a way of life. Religions change all the time. We've got 10 different versions of the Bible. We have different religions that come at different times. People change texts. People decipher texts. Tradition doesn't change. It stays exactly the same. So you can practice and you can practice and you can practice and keep going over the same stuff. How does somebody become not perfect? How do they become the best at what they're doing?
Experience.
Practice. Practice. A tennis player. Think of, who was a really good tennis player? That was a really rubbish example, wasn't it? I can't even think of a good tennis player. Yes, Federer. Practices all the time, every day. A gymnast, they practice every day. Footballers, They might have a month off and go party like rock stars and then be in all the newspapers, but they practice, don't they? Before every match, before every game, before every season, constantly in friendlies and God knows what else. Even when you're teaching, you've got to stay in your practice. It's important for you, for your confidence. Okay, now we go into a little bit, I want to get just a bit of your memory and your confidence. How to sequence a class. What are some of the first components of how to sequence a class? So you've all been through it, you say, so let's talk. What do we start with? Yes, absolutely. Namaste. You start with the welcome. Can you imagine walking into a group of people and you start chanting, okay, bye, the class is over. They'll be like, what? Who are you? What did I just learn? Have a thought process of, you've got to tell the students who you are. When you're out there teaching, they've got to know who you are. They've got to feel comfortable with who they think that you are there. What you're teaching. So, Ashtanga. What series? What level is it at? Just explain it. It takes 5 minutes. What pace will it go at? You've got to remember here, we're constantly in class. In the Western world, you'll barely have 1 hour to take a class. So you've got to be able to plan it. Because when you have one class and then somebody else is coming in to take a different class directly after you, you only have a specific amount of time. Most yoga classes, if you look, they're what, an hour? 1 hour? 1 hour and 15 minutes maximum. Unless they're doing like a workshop on something specific, which you can go into a bit more depth. So you've got to know. For example, Ashtanga. Will you get through that full sequence in 1 hour? No. So you've got to have the plan. Centering and grounding. Just think about the times that you go to a yoga class. You're running late. You've just had to drive at 110 miles an hour because otherwise you're going to be 5 minutes late and they're going to lock the door and you're all flustered. We've all done it, haven't we? And you've had that moment of, I've just had an argument at home. Should I go to class? Shouldn't I go to class? This is how I feel. That's how I feel. But then as soon as you walk through that door and you're hot, bothered, sweaty, your breath is going, I can't breathe because you've had to run up them stairs. You need to center and ground the class. You need to bring them in to that space. You need to bring them into that moment. So you could then start with Namaste or a mantra or Om or a prayer, dependent on where you are in the world. Some places don't like it. Some places don't like mantras. Some students don't like mantras. You know, you've got to be really mindful of how you're going to center and ground. You have that knowledge, so you can pick and choose what you want. So you can sing a mantra. Some people even here on yoga teacher training courses, when we're singing mantras, and trust me, I sound like a cat being strangled, but I just love the sound of mantra. So I don't care how I sound. Some students won't even let it out of their mouth because they attach a religious connotation to it, or they think it's religious rather than spiritual. And you've got to be mindful of that, not here, but out there. And then what comes after centering and grounding? You're going to kick them straight into a handstand? Yeah, you can ask for injuries. There's certain things you can ask, like, are you okay for me to touch you? But we'll go into that in a little bit different. But then we come into warm up. You can't put somebody straight into a headstand. You got to warm up. Joint movements. So what you will find is when you're sequencing a class, and say you have a peak pose at the end, and say your peak pose is Virabhadasana. You have to do all of the movements of the Bhava Muktasana series. Pull out what works. So when you're looking at your peak pose, what are the key muscle groups that are being used? Is it hips, legs, shoulders? So then your warm-up will be around shoulders, hips, thighs, hands, because you're going to go down or you're going to stretch and move. And that's how you can focus and work out where you are. So centering, grounding, then warm up. Any questions so far? And then you demand and command. What do you think demand and command means? Demand and command means that you actually control that class, not your student, not those people that are there in front of you. Can you imagine walking into a class and saying, please, Joe Bloggs over there, could you go into Shavasana for me? Or could I ask you all to do downward facing dog? What are you going to do if half of the class turn around and say no? I'm not doing that. I don't like it. I don't like how it makes me feel. Demand and command. You control the class. You dictate what you say in that class and what asana comes. You don't ask them to do it. You are telling them and showing them. You should know your students. And you won't the very first time you walk into a class. But you should be able to feel their energy. When you have people that are disruptive in class, and trust me, I've had people that are disruptive in class. I've had people doing something totally opposite to what I'm saying in a class, trying to do, disruptive for themselves, not for me. You have to understand maybe where that person's energy is and what they're going through, because it won't be against you and it won't be a challenge to you. You may feel that, but it isn't. It's about where they are. And you have to just have that inner strength to just continue with the class and just understand potentially where their energy is at and that they might need that little bit of your time separately. So know your student's name. Feel the energy when you walk into a classroom. And you might think, wow, how the hell do I do that? Because you can't see energy. You can't touch energy. You can feel it. You might give somebody an electric shock now and again. But feeling the energy, just watching how they're sitting, watching how they're entering a class. It tells you a lot about a person. And if you're really new, there's no harm in spending 5 minutes or 10 minutes just asking what everybody's name is and introducing the self. Use action. Action. Inhale. Use direction. So action is doing. Direction. Touch the floor with your hand. Feel the air. Using direction. You're using direction. You're giving them direction. Come to the floor. Come to seat. Use a bolster. Sit on the bolster. Use that direction. And body part. Talk the body parts. Use your feet. Use your legs. Use your thighs. Rotate your thighs. Or you're going to move like this. Step your foot out. Don't just say step out. But you can, because you can use the direction of touch the floor. And you can show. Look at body language. You've asked somebody to go into an asana. And they've stopped breathing. Because they're trying to hold it and be really strong. And their ego's kicking in, so they don't want to look like the idiot. And the face is going red. You've got to also watch your students and where they're at. And in every class you will get students that are not as confident, that might have self-esteem issues. And that can sometimes manifest itself as ego, where they will try overly challenge you, or they will go into asanas at 110% rather than the 80% that they're supposed to. Try not to push them, just try to read where they're at. If anybody's holding their breath, talk to them, allow them to let go, tell them to let go. Use your voice to direct and guide. And then adjust your energy accordingly. You might have your class set up, for example, Sebastian, that I'm doing this, and this asana. And, You know, I sometimes only get to the 4th asana and my class is nearly over. You can ask Harish. I'm like, Harish is like, you've only got 15 minutes left. And I'm like, oh my God, God damn, I've still got like 15 asanas to go through. But adjust your class accordingly to the time, to the energy, to the space, to the students. You know everything. You've got it there. You have it there. You have that confidence. You've just got to believe in yourself. Just some things are to see, observe and be aware. It's all you need to do in a class. Just see, observe and be aware. People will be engaged. People will be bored. You will be taken through meditation. People will open their eyes and look around the room. You will be chanting mantras. There is all sorts that goes on in front of that classroom. But it's okay. You can observe and you can see. Everybody is different. We can't all expect to be the same. And when we're going into a yoga class, we're going for different reasons and we all have different challenges. And even as a yoga teacher, you will have different challenges in life that can sometimes come across in a class. But you just have to make sure that your energy is grounded and centered first and foremost through your sadhana practice. And then we come to touch. There is different types of touch and there is an art of touching in a yoga class. Do you think everybody is going to allow you to touch them? In the Western world today, there is so much. We have to be really mindful and aware of people. So you have to ask the question, do you mind if I touch you? That doesn't mean you can go grab somebody's ass. That doesn't mean that somebody's allowed to grab you. When we talk about allowing to touch, it means gentle touch. It's not aggressive. It's not harsh. You're not trying to contort somebody in a yoga class. We are here in a yoga teacher training class. Trust me, we will bend you in all sorts of different shapes and ways. But out there, no. Can you imagine if a teacher came? You know, sometimes you'll feel somebody touch you or they'll brush past you and you think, wow, that felt weird. That made me feel a bit uneasy. Or I didn't quite like how that person touched me. We have to be mindful of that also. That we don't want to make our student feel like that. So ask the question. And if there is anybody that doesn't want touch, you have to respect that. It's not against you. We're too personal, aren't we? We always like to think it's about us. It's not. You might not want to touch somebody because they've been sweating and they've not had a shower, but you know, if they say don't touch me, that's okay. And you can even have like little cards in front, you know, which might be red or green, and green means you can touch and red means don't touch. So, what types of touch do you think they are? There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 types of touch. Close your eyes. Let's close your eyes and let's go into Ashu's Hatha class or Ashu's alignment class or Naveen's class. And think about the type of touch that they do. So when they're coming over to you, what type of touch are they doing? Don't overthink it. Just think about that class. When they've come to touch you to do something, at what point have they brought it in? If you've allowed them to touch.
I think the most common would be like applying pressure with fingers out, so it's more like in the meaty part of the hand, a push.
Deepen for asana. So there is touch to deepen asana. Never to 100%, always only to 80%. Never ever to 100%. Any more? Touch for alignment.
Just grab, not with the hands. Just
Yeah, they can even touch you with the foot. To just say, move your foot. You know, just move the foot slightly like that way. So we can deepen through pressure. We can align through a movement or just a very slight feeling. Like I can come across to you and just go. And just align. Or I can come up to you, let's see somebody who's sitting. I can come up to somebody here who's sitting and make a feeling for alignment. We can't ever go against that. And when do you think you start the touch? So when you're in your grounding and centering, should I come up to you and start touching you when I'm trying to bring you into the room? Should I do it at the end? Right at the end? So what point do you think that we should use touch?
As we are doing the asanas.
Yeah, in the middle. Usually in the middle of the class. Middle and the end. Because even in Shavasana, you can make a bit of alignment and adjustment and touch. So therapeutic. There is therapeutic touch. What do we think therapeutic touch means?
You could put oil on the palms of the hands in Shavasana. Well, I just experienced that.
Yeah. No, not that way. It's basically, it's when somebody is at their full potential or going above their full potential, you kind of bring them back out of it a little bit. So it's a bit more therapeutic. So you can like maybe rub or push or just add a bit of pressure. No, so not in the nice way. I like that too, by the way. But more so in the way of make it a bit more therapeutic so that they don't look they're gonna pass out in your class and you're calling an ambulance. Because you will find hundreds of people that will come through your class and they all hold their breath. And they forget to breathe. And you've got to remember when you're first starting to teach, you have to teach through the pace, through the gentleness. These people will be new, so they won't have the breath right. They won't have the alignment right. They might not have the process right. And 9 times out of 10, you can do your class at the front and just guide and talk. But you don't want anybody passing out in class. So if anybody starts to hold their breath or is doing something, you have to have that bit of a therapeutic touch where you can go up to them. And actually, this is a really good point. If you don't like to touch, you can say that I won't come and touch because it's not a personal preference of mine, but I will be able to guide you through direction. So we can't always think of it that way. You also have to think about the self too. Then there is grounding asana. Grounding in asana. Know your boundaries. Know your students' boundaries. We have different body types. We're all different shapes and sizes. I can do some of the most wonderful weird ass twists, but ask me to do a basic lift and it won't work. You know, some people can go into splits by magic, but they'll never be able to do a handstand. Just know the boundaries. And the final one is nurture, the nurturing touch. The nurturing touch, which is, sorry, what was Ireland? I don't remember Southern Ireland. Michelle. And, you know, nurturing in asana, or nurturing in practice, or in Shavasana, where you put oil on the hands and just get them to smell and take a deep inhale. You know, you can nurture in asana. It's nice to do different things. It's nice to add a bit of uniqueness and it's nice to add a bit of your style. Only thing you have to be mindful of is Do people have allergies? Because then it takes it to another level. I've had people that are allergic to incense. If you've got flowers around or real flowers, they're allergic to pollen and flowers, and they've sneezed all the way through the class, or they don't want AC on because they don't like the air conditioning cold, and they'll get poorly. There's lots of different things. Just nurture, be aware. When it's warm, when it's comfortable, when it's real, not many people will ever complain. But when you try to be somebody that you're not, then people will complain.
I used to take this one class, and they would bring cold, wet towels around for Shavasana and placing over your eyes. It was the best.
Yes.
It was so nice.
And you can do that. There's lots of different things you can do in Shavasana. Shavasana doesn't just have to mean like this. And Shavasana doesn't just mean corpse pose. There is different styles. Shavasana is corpse. It's coming into that death moment, a moment of death after practice. But I've also done a Shavasana in Balasana. I've done a Shavasana in Magrasana. Depends where you are. Depends where the energy of the class is. The standard, the traditional. If you're teaching traditionally, and when you first start, Shavasana is that. But it's fun. Class shouldn't be scary. You shouldn't have self-esteem issues. Class is about fun. It's about love. It's about energy. It's about warmth. It's really not what comes out of here or what this is doing. It's about what's coming from here. It's what comes from your heart. So if you're taking that class with love, you can't go far wrong. If you're going to take that class with ego, and you're going to take that class with determination and the eye of what you want to achieve, you will have a bad class. Because people will automatically start to feel your energy. If we can feel energy, other people can feel energy. And especially those that are maybe going through something, might be overly sensitive. You've just got to be really mindful. But speak from the heart, teach from the heart. It's not about, it's got to look like this, or it's got to look like this, or it's got to be set in this way. These are just guiders and pointers to give you a bit of confidence. But once you start to talk from the heart, your teachings are there. That's what it's about. It's about being real. It's about being you. And it's about having the confidence to show you. Who's got the confidence to be themselves and show themselves? It's that union. It's that union of the mind, body and soul. It's not separate. Doesn't run away anywhere. What's here can be what's here. And also in the soul. Teach from the soul. When you love what you do, when you enjoy what you do, it comes from the soul. And it comes from the heart. When you don't like what you do, isn't it so obvious when somebody hates their job? When you walk into a shop, for example, or you're going to go buy something, can you tell me if you can tell if that person enjoys their job or not? You can. You can. It's the same with anything. You can tell a teacher that's in a bad mood and don't like teaching. Because a teacher can be harsh and a teacher can be strict. But when they're doing it with love and care, it's different, isn't it? You accept it. But when somebody's teaching and they're teaching with ego and hurt and they hate their job, you can tell. You walk into a shop and somebody slams your change in the counter I've walked out and said, I'll never come back here again. That was so rude. It shows. So enjoy what you are doing. Enjoy what you are doing. Enjoy what you are teaching. Teach what you know. Know your style. And then we come into the different types of learners. Do you all here learn in the same way? Some are visual, some like to see, some like to read, some like to watch, some like to be shown. So you've got body-wise, some like to be shown. So you can do some asanas. You can move across different parts of the class. So if somebody stood here, I can come and stand here. I don't have to stay stuck in a spot. Just don't go behind the students and try teach them an asana, because they'll be facing the other way and wonder what you're doing. Then you have the verbal cues. Speak. Through talk. Use your voice. Use your tone. And then we have adjustment and alignment. Talk about it. Tell them. Move your foot out to the side. Bring it closer to the mat. Move it here. Put it slightly further to the left. Sit straight. Bend your toes. You know, we've got to move, talk, use it. And then we have performing together. So we're all doing. As a teacher, I will take you through a couple of the asanas. I'm doing what you're doing what I'm doing. When we're chanting mantras, we're performing together. Because a different energy also comes when you perform together at different times. And it's nice because it brings that unity, and it brings that love, and it brings that connection. And then to end the class, lying is a big thing in yoga. Teachers saying that they do more than they know. Students lying to you. You lying to the student. And when I say lying, I don't mean that you're going out there and telling something completely different to what it should be. When I say lying is when you're making stuff up. So a student asks you a question. So at the end of the class, the student might come to you and say, I've got this problem. What asanas can you recommend to help me do at home? And you don't have a clue. But because you want to be seen as the teacher and the know-it-all, you make it up. So why do you think people lie? Yeah, absolutely. Words of encouragement isn't lying. To encourage somebody isn't to lie. That's helping and supporting. When you're lying, when you lie to somebody, we lie for 3 reasons. You're not comfortable.
Pretend to be something.
Because you've got to gain. You want to gain something. You want all of these 20 students to come back next week. But one thing is, truth needs courage. And your students will respect you more when you say to them, I'm not sure, but I will come back to you. Instead of lying. Your students will respect you more if you can laugh at yourself because you went the wrong way or you forgot to balance the side. I forget counting all the time. I say we're going to count for 8. 4th one, and I've lost the plot. I've gone into number 15 and I'm like, students, you're going to have to start counting yourself because I've literally lost the role of that counting. And no matter how many times I teach, how many times I say 7, I can never stick to 7. I go to 8 or 10 on one side and 10 or 15 on the other. It's okay. To be you, it takes courage. It's the same thing in class. Truth takes courage. And the biggest thing that we have to remember that your Guru light is within you. It's here. It's not far. It's not up that tree or that mountain. Or in that potato or veggie burger that you might eat later. The Guru light is within you. So if you're doing your sadhana practice, you are connected. You have it within you to teach. You have that confidence. It's not lack of confidence. It's not lack of knowledge. Sometimes it just takes a bit of courage to be the self. And when you teach, teach from the heart. The methodology is there. I will email that over to the group so you've got a PDF version of it. The methodology is there. But my tip to you is teach from the heart and teach with love. And you won't go far wrong. And you won't need another 10 years before you really decide to teach. Just teach. Just go with the flow. And you're there. How do you feel? Where are we at? Ask me some questions. There was a little bit of information in there or a lot of information. Don't be shy. Ask. Yeah.
For me, it's yoga is there's so much information and knowledge that we want to share, and we only have 1 hour. So after all this learning, of course, we know that it's not just asanas, but people are coming for asanas for us. So how can we give a holistic class to show asanas, also mantras, also that is the goal for many other steps and processes that yoga involves, to make it always a holistic class.
Okay. So to make a class holistic, what you have to think about in holistic levels is plan what you want to work on and build around that, and then practice it and make it 1 hour. So your mantra chanting can be your centering and grounding. It can be 2 minutes, 5 minutes for this. The main part of the class is going to be the asana class always, and then the ending of the class, the Shavasana. So think of the beginning, the middle and the end, and you bring that into 1 hour. So you can have mantra, you can have pranayama. I don't like these. You can have mantra, you can have pranayama, you can have asana, and then you have Shavasana. And your philosophy can come during Shavasana. What has that class been based on? Heart opening, for example. You can add a bit of philosophy about heart opening. So that's how you would make it holistic within that hour. If we have time, and if I take another class, I will teach one class with it holistic all the way through, including mantra, pranayama, asana, savasana, unity, connection, dance. I'll take that class. If I get the chance, then we can kind of get it done and we can use that 1 hour space. And I will make it so it's 1 hour. And then you will see like what the focus point is and where we're at. And that should then help and just bring a bit of understanding as to how we join all the dots together. Because you are right, there is lots of knowledge and lots of facets and different parts. But how do we join the dots? How do you, No, you're welcome. It's more like how you're feeling, about where you're at in terms of yourself. But just have trust. Have the courage. You're right where you need to be, with whom you need to be, and you will be doing what you need to do. And you've just got to believe. Just take that little bit of magic and just trust.